Hey everybody, Joanna here. Today I'm going to be giving you five sci-fi standalones that I'm very curious about and I need your help. I need your help to let me know if you think that these are books that would be worthwhile, that you think I would enjoy based on my reading taste or what you know of my reading taste. And I would love your sci-fi standalone suggestions. I'm specifically looking for books that are not terribly long. The longest book I'm going to be talking about today is still under 400 pages. I would prefer even shorter than that. Even if it's under 200 pages, I would greatly appreciate that. But I really enjoy sci-fi standalones because I read so much fantasy, and sometimes it's just nice to have a different type of world building experience and to get into some really thoughtful themes and ideas that I think sci fi explores in a unique way compared to fantasy. I also like the blend of science fiction and fantasy. So let me know your thoughts. And starting out with one book that I'm definitely going to be getting to, and that's The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin. Hoping to get to this in December. And this particular book, it says here on the back that we have this bleak moon utopian society, and it's been isolated from other worlds, including its mother planet, a civilization of warring nations, poverty, and wealth. And it sounds like there's this physicist who is trying to go between these two areas. I've also heard that this explores a utopian society versus a dystopian society, and that there's a dual timeline with alternating chapters. I've never read any book by Ursula K. Le Guin. I've only read her essay From Elfland to Poughkeepsie, which is excellent. And so I'm curious about her. I've actually watched a lot of videos about Ursula K. Le Guin. I fell down a rabbit hole last year just watching several interviews of her life, hearing what she had to say as an author. Such a fascinating person. And I'm so eager to get to this book because it seems to top a lot of people's favorites list. So let me know if you've read it. This is probably the longest book I'm going to mention here on this might be read TBR today. The next book I'm curious about is Snow Crash by Neil Stevenson. This is a cyberpunk novel. I've never read cyberpunk before. I did try one time and I fell off after the first few pages, but that's another story for another time. But this particular book, Snow Crash, is set in near future LA. And I understand it has a pizza mafia delivery service and a main protagonist called Hero Protagonist and a character named Yours Truly, YT. It sounds very visual. I love books that can make me visually immersed in the setting, and it sounds like it might be fun. Oh, I lied, by the way. I thought that this book, that is Possessed, was the longest book on this list, but it turns out Snow Crash comes in at the 440 page mark, so it's a little longer than I was expecting. But I'm still curious about it. I think I still might pick it up, even though it sounds a little different than what I normally read. Next book is Solaris, and this is by a Polish author, Stanislaw Lem. I think there are two translations of this book from what I've seen online. So if you have a recommendation for a specific translation, please let me know, at least translated into English. And this book, it sounds so wild. It really does. So it has to do with a planet or space station that might be conscious, and the people on this planet are trying to understand what this is, what kind of entity they're dealing with. They conduct several experiments to try to figure this out, and I guess this planet produces things. It sounds wild, and it's only 224 pages. I am so intrigued by the premise of this book. Let me know if you've read it. The next book on the list I'm a little embarrassed about because I don't remember if I read this or not, and that's Flowers for Algernon. I know I watched the film adaptation when I was in high school, but here's the thing. I went to a high school that was a little low budget if you weren't in the honors classes or AP classes. The English classes I took were kind of a joke because for whatever reason I didn't do honors or AP. And I remember watching the Grapes of Wrath adaptation too, and I don't think we read that either. So I feel so ill read when it comes to so many classics, but I do remember this story, whether I read it or just watched it. I remember it. And this has to do with the character who is undergoing some kind of surgery for his IQ. He has a low level IQ to start out with, and this advances it quite a bit. And he's emotionally having to catch up with this experience, and it turns into a very heartbreaking ending. So I do want to read this just to confirm that I've read it. It's not terribly long. It's 311 pages. It's highly recommended by so many people. So I think I will return to this story regardless of how I consumed it in the first place. Lastly, I have Ubik by Philip K. Dick on this list. Often when I see people talk about this book or when I see it online, when I see editions of it, I see spray cans. So I don't know what the spray can thing is about, honestly, but I understand it's hard to talk about this book. You just kind of have to experience it. It's set in futuristic New York, at least at the time it was written. It was futuristic New York, and that there's this shifting reality happening. It's dystopian, which is usually not a buzzword for me, but I'm willing to give this a shot, and that we're dealing with psychic ability. So it sounds really weird, but I have been just so curious about this author since his name keeps coming up. I've heard his prose is not the best of the best, but it still sounds like an interesting premise, and it comes in at 240 pages. So I will give this a shot. That is it. Those are the five books I'm curious about. Please let me know your thoughts. I would love to hear from you in the comment section below. And thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Bye bye.